Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Hello, my name is Kris Roberts. Welcome to The Long Road. This is going to be a follow-up to last week's discussion on education. And what I've got this week is I got some opinions and some comments by a lot of people that are in the education field. And because we hear anecdotal things here and there, and so I figured let's go right to some of the comments. And the people that we're going to be making comment from, these are all readers of the New York Times. And so the New York Times, while it's printed at a 12th grade education, still has a number of a high level of college graduates. First one I'm going to talk about Kevin. Kevin goes, I'm a teacher. The decade-long attempt to increase standards have been counteracted by several other educational trends that lowered the standard. The biggest evidence for this is graduation rates, which have gone through the roof as test scores haven't changed. It is virtually impossible to fail a middle school class in any area. As a high school teacher, I routinely get students that are a fourth, third, or even a second grade level, but have gotten the gentleman's D- for years. They have never learned anything. Attendance policies have also been massively relaxed in order to prop up the graduation rates. In my school, you can be absent over 15% of the time and still pass. Also, they push to eliminate grouping by capacity in order to avoid putting a stigma on the low achievers or lowering their expectations. This means that students who are at a second grade level continuously get a D are in class with students that are actually at grade level. So he says, how much learning do you think it's going on? Advanced kids still do fine because they get put in separate groups, but everyone else is poorly served unless you move into a lily white district where everyone does well. Okay. This is Kevin, a teacher, been a teacher for a while, teaches high school. And so, like for example, the state of New Hampshire, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, stated that everybody had to go to school until they were 18. Regardless if they were learning anything, they have to go to school. As long as they're not hurting anybody, they can be in the class, they can be disrupted. The number one priority was, what was your graduation rate? Okay? So, we're trying to improve the standards that we expect the children to reach. But if we approve the standards, the graduation rate will drop because we have students that don't want to learn, just don't want to be there. They just want to get the hell out of school as soon as possible And hey, you can throw me in school suspension, whatever, no problem. I can hang around in that study hall. And plus, I know I don't have to do the work because I'm still going to pass. I'm still going to get a diploma. So, just think of it. Okay? When the guy's talking about children, students at second, third, or fourth grade in high school, well, that goes to last week when we had that study which showed that almost 20% of 15-year-olds cannot read at a fifth grade level. But they're in high school and they're going to graduate. Now just think of this. If 20% of the 15-year-olds cannot read at a fifth grade level, okay, and within 2 years, for some 3 years, 98 to 99% of the students will get diplomas. And somehow, I don't see how students can make up 12 years of reading growth in 2 years. So I have an ethical and moral problem with that, where we as adults are purposely passing kids, setting kids up for failure. Shannon goes, I teach at a community college in rural Tennessee. Students come to community college completely unprepared for academic work. They are reading and writing about a fourth grade level on average. They are not dumb, though. Their comments in class show that they can think pretty well. They are just totally incompetent at expressing those thoughts in writing. They also can't read very well. It's apparent that while they were in K through 12 schooling, almost no one expected them to read or write. Their grasp of math is pretty teeterous as well. Some of these students are poor, but most are not. Many are solidly middle class and drive nice cars to campus. Nicer than the cars that the adjunct faculty drive, for example. College is free for the first 2 years in Tennessee, so everybody can go to college. In addition to the academic deficits, they have poor self-organization skills. They are surprised that they are actually required to complete the assignment. Some are outraged when they're penalized for not doing the assignments. Again, something is very wrong at K through 12. So yes, Tennessee, your first 2 years, you can go to community college and it's free. New Hampshire, it's not free. I think it's about $300, around at least $200 a credit. And so that's so you're taking 16 credits, that's 3,000. So do it for 4 years. To get your associates, you're talking about $15,000. In Tennessee, it's free. And like she said, you know, people go, oh, Tennessee, Kentucky, that's hillbilly country. But no, many are solidly middle class and drive nice cars. And they're not prepared either. So what's happening? Okay. Here's another teacher. I just remembered a story from Education Week about a month ago about a Seattle school district that decided to include in its math curriculum a sociological component devoted to teaching the student how math has been appropriated by Western culture as a tool of oppression. Okay. So, a school district has decided to say math has been appropriated by American culture as a tool of oppression. And some of the questions in the new math class, because they need to teach the students not to be impressed, is you get, what is my mathematical identity? I guess you're a number or a phrase or compound, fraction, whatever you want to do. How important it is to be right. What is right? Because, being right is a sign of impression. Okay. Then it goes, can you recognize and name oppressive mathematic practices in your experience? How can we change mathematics from individualistic to collective thinking? How can we use math to measure the impact of activism? Can you advocate against impressive mathematic practices? Can you suggest resolutions to oppressive mathematic practices? That's just some of them. Okay. That is like, I think it was around the 1970s, 1980s. Jesse Jackson and a number of other black social leaders who are saying, hey, the Queen's English is racist, and that is totally unfair and oppressive to teach black inner city students the Queen's English. And so they should be able to speak Ebonics, which is basically a black inner city dialect. Okay? Well, here's one of the problems. As long as you're in the inner city, you can communicate. Once you're out of the inner city, you're lost. If you graduate from an Oakland high school and you go to college and you only speak Ebonics, you're lost. Because no one else knows Ebonics. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have to learn English after you move out of the city. You're not going to get a job speaking Ebonics. Okay? When I go to this Seattle thing, mathematics is oppressive. Okay? You can teach the students mathematics is oppressive of the Western culture. Okay? And I sit here and it's trying to come up with a really... Okay, so I'm trying to figure. I'm going to teach you this type of math. Okay? How are you going to be a doctor or an engineer or a mathematician, accountant, a banker, a stockbroker, physicist? All those require math. Okay. Again, the adults can go and say, yeah, we're going to feel good. We're going to do this for the kids and everything. And adults get fat, done, and happy. And then the kids are left out to dry. Because when someone comes in applying, I'm an engineer firm, and someone wants to come in, work for me, I'm going to look at his math skills. And if his or her math skills don't measure up, they're not getting a job. You know what? You can come to me as the business owner and say, well, You know, mathematics was appropriated by Western culture to be the impressor of all non-white people. Well, and I can say, I'm going to respect your belief. That is important to you. I'm going to respect it. But I want something that knows how to solve these formulas. I need someone who can go in and come up with mathematic formulas of how many stories I can put on this building, how much concrete, how much rebar, all this stuff. And guess what? They all require mathematics. Not culturally mathematics, but regular mathematics. And so we got a guy here because Singapore ranks number 2 in the nation. And he goes, greeting from sunny Singapore, the number 2 in the rankings. I have been reading some of the comments and I feel quite compelled to say the following. 1, Singapore is a multiracial as well as a multi-religious city-state that also happens to be a Chinese minority. It is likely the learners and the samples selected reflect our diversity. Okay, 1, he's saying in the United States, if you go to an all-white school, you'll probably get higher scores, but when you go to diverse schools, diversity requires your scores to go down. Wrong. He goes, the medium of instruction in our school is English. That is an important point to note because all of us have to overcome language barriers before we can start our learning practice. So, every single student, Singapore and everything, you have a whole bunch of different dialects and everything. When you show up to school, the first thing you got to do is learn English. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter what your language is, Chinese, Japanese, and all the different dialects. Everyone has to learn English, and from day one, basically all your instructions is in English. So it kind of goes against our excuse. Well, you know what? They don't know English. They have English as a second language. 3, and the second part is, yes, when you come over to Singapore, please do not tell me how well I speak English. You know, it's really amazing. You can go to European countries, you can go to Singapore, Japan, and a lot of places, and you go, holy crap, you speak proper English. You speak better English than most of the people in America. Well, that's really kind of insulting to our education system. 3, motivation from within is critical to learning. In the absence of motivation, parents can force their kids to schlep themselves to private tutors, but the results are not likely to be good. Because it doesn't matter. If you don't have any motivation in school, you're not going to have any motivation with a private tutor. And in most cases, you're just wasting money. It's at 8 years old, I still could not read properly and was in danger of being slow-tracked as a result. However, a steady diet of Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew books from the local library helped me write my listening chip, and here I am. It was all free. By the way, our libraries are worth a visit. And oh, you're saying you better learn how to read. You got to have some self-motivation. Another teacher, Amy. As a former teacher, I agree. In some states, the graduations are tied to hefty bonuses for principals, not teachers, and accountability has been taken off the shoulders of the parents and students and placed directly on the teachers. And like you, teachers also inherit children that were never ready to be passed on to the next level. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that test scores are subjective. Teaching is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Those that create the test do not teach the subject and have no idea what is being taught in the classroom, or the mental health issues, the discipline issues. Until our states quit allowing parents to determine what isn't happening in schools, it will never get better. So just think, Mr. Principal, if you raise our graduation rate from 90 to 95%, we'll increase your salary or we'll give you a bonus. But oh, by the way, the teachers won't get anything. They just have to do the work to make sure. Jim, I've been teaching for almost 40 years. I know of not a single teacher nowadays who thinks that we're not approaching a crisis. Most teachers are very much afraid of giving very low or failing grades to students who clearly deserve them. In the eyes of the administration and sadly many parents, such grades are the result of deficiencies of the teacher and never the student. I came into teaching naively thinking that all the students wanted to learn. While many do, many others simply don't. Until we deal honestly with that reality, no progress will be made. So, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of kids. They're 16, 18. They have no desire whatsoever to be in school. And for a lot, it starts at the middle school. There's kids at the middle school are just there and they're just causing trouble. They don't want to go to school. They don't think anything of school. Here, I'm a physics teacher in Connecticut who went to school in China and the United States. My colleagues and I see this every day. This is not an education problem, this is a social problem. As a nation, we don't respect individuals as much as TV stars or ball players. This is not something money can fix. There has to be a cultural change. I have seen many minority students from poor immigrant families who work hard and win academic awards in school. I've also seen kids who are intelligent but don't want to make any effort in school and fail in school. It has nothing to do with the education policy. The students have to do the learning. Teachers can only guide and help. Laws and regulations can't make kids learn. Parents do. As an Asian, I know parents who spend hours every day to help their children improve their math skills. I do not know any Asian parent who does not require their kid to do extra math in elementary and middle school. When my colleagues and students tell me Asians are good at math, I know for sure it is not genetic, it's cultural, it's extra work. Yeah. And if you go around and one of the things we like to look at Asia is Japan, Korea, China. Asia swings all the way over. Asia is most of Russia. Asia is a lot of the stands, Kyrgyzstan, part Afghanistan, Asia, and India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Those are all Asia. So if you look at a lot of Asian families, whether they have a restaurant, a food place, a little store, you'll see their kids. They're studying. Not only do their kids have to study, the kids have to work and contribute to the family. I was at Costco in Nashua, a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this family. They looked Chinese. And they had a girl about 3 years old that was inside their shopping cart. They were pushing around as they were shopping. And this 3-year-old girl was reading a book. And I tried really, really hard to think the last time I saw kids reading a book. Okay? The only way you get better is by doing it. And it's important that you read, important you study math, because there's a lot of Asian people that want their kids to be doctors, engineers, mathematicians, scientists, and they know they can't do that without having really good math skills. Okay, here's Julie. I'm a literary writing specialist now in the private practice. An enormous driver of these deficits is the ever-shrinking size of students' vocabulary and the dumbing down of the digital brain. From the time they hold objects in their hands, babies stare at smartphone screens while the caregivers talk or look at their phone instead of engaging children in meaningful conversations. And we are in a vicious cycle where our vocabularies are shrinking due to less and less meaningful exposure to words, and so reading becomes harder and therefore less interesting. Further underscore the school's failure to correctly teach phonics and grammar. Simply put, kids don't know what words mean. Then we sit them down to fill in the bubbles on standardized tests and are disappointed when they perform poorly. The short-term solution to our digital world is exposure to audio books instead of mindless games, so that children can have a chance to gain vocabulary. Yeah. Okay. Middle school, high school kids, college kids, it's not unusual for them to put 20, 30 hours a week into playing video games. Fortnite, Angry Bird, the different war games. If you ever listen to, if you're a parent, go in and listen to what's going on. You'll hear some vocabulary that would make a drunken sailor be embarrassed. A couple of Vermont state troopers get punished. I think they both lost their jobs because someone was recording what they were saying over some war games. And, there's racists, other homophobia, just cussing. Everything you can think of is said on those games. People think because they can't see the other person can't see them, they can say whatever they want. Okay? I've been a public high school teacher for 19 years. The majority of the time has been spent in an urban high school. I am so sick of stories and articles on the achievement gap that insist it's instructors that are to blame. I'm an excellent teacher who only improves with time. My students love my class and I can get them to do more than most teachers. But my students come to me reading several grade levels below what they should be with no identifiable learning disabilities. This makes my job impossible. They simply cannot access high school level curriculum. We need early intervention to identify to solve these problems. A student in 10th grade with a 4th grade reading level was not reading on grade level in 4th grade either. The elementary teachers are teaching those students in the same class as kids that go on to AP. They are not the problem. We simply have no mechanism to deal with students continuously not making standards. We can't hold them back at all, or you have 16-year-olds in 8th grade. As for the cause, there is no cause. There is no single cause. In my district, it's a combination generational poverty, single-parent household, a lack of early literacy opportunities outside the home, poor attendance, a transit problem, students who come to school high, and then you add trauma to mix for some school and some truly awful parents. For others, of course, they're behind. Okay? Since I've been on the Keene School Board, first started, we had the alcohol syndrome babies. Then we went the cocaine babies. Then we went the opioid babies. And yes, cocaine can be that, but we're talking about the painkillers and stuff. Now we're on the fentanyl babies. The vast majority of those kids whose parents were taking drugs or were on were alcoholics, especially while they were pregnant, have done a lot of serious damage to those babies. From a personal point, my brother and his wife like to use cocaine. They got pregnant, and when they had a baby, had wet fingers, missing cartilage out of joints, and educational handicaps. Well, my niece grew up and she couldn't stay away from the drugs. Her and her boyfriend had a child. And because she was using and drinking while she was pregnant, that baby was born with a number of serious birth defects. To make it worse, 6 weeks ago, my niece had another baby. In Massachusetts, I don't know about other states, she was tested. after she delivered the baby. The baby was tested. And both the mother, my niece, and the baby both had fentanyl in their system. The only reason the state of Massachusetts did not come and take that baby away was because my other brother and his wife went down and took that baby and are caring for the baby. It is rough on my brother. I talked to him the other day. He's almost 60 years old. And when I talked to him yesterday, he's a postman. He works all day. He came home, was given the baby a bath and stuff, and he's tired. Okay? My brother and his wife are going to try to do everything possible. They expect, if everything goes right, my niece and her boyfriend, who's her boyfriend's baby from another mother is being raised by his grandmother, they probably will be clean enough, if they do everything, in 6 to 9 months to get their child back. Okay? 6 to 9 months, now you're going to cause separation anxiety because the child, which can't see his mother for that 6 to 9 months, will be would be taken away from someone that child is bonded with and put to a total stranger. And now, how is that child going to be prepared when it shows up for kindergarten? How is the school, how is the teacher going to be able to have that child catch up for all it lost prior to coming to school? In a certain case, a small amount, they will be some kids that we don't know why will find a way to overcome all that stuff and excel. The vast majority won't. The vast majority will be going through the system, fully knowing, the administration fully knowing, our school boards, our Department of Eds at the state level, the governors, fully knowing that these kids are not going to make it because they may only be at 4th grade level. The woman from Tennessee, the teacher at community college, with kids showing at community college at 4th grade level and basically can't write or read. The only way they can communicate is by talking or texting. So, there's a lot of teachers out there that really enjoy doing their job. They want to teach the students. Okay? But it requires the administration, and it requires the parents, and it requires the students to get actively involved. Not to just float like a bottle on the ocean for 12 years, and then on graduation day, someone pulls the cork off that bottle and says, "Here's your diploma. I don't want to see you anymore. You helped my statistics." Another one. What a colossal farce. I spent several decades leading a pre-K through K-12 school and have written extensively with fertility about the education system. The issue with primary money, despite what politicians and for-profit scam artists tell you, rich kids do poor, fine, poor kids not so well. Classes are too large in poor neighborhoods, buildings are falling down, resources are disproportionately screwed to the most African communities, in greater part because dependent on poverty tax. Every childhood experience in and out of the home are far richer when the parents are richer. We have more children living in poverty than any undeveloped country. We put fathers of poor kids in jail and deny their family decent health care. We have social problems, not educational problems. The teachers at my former school, where all graduates went to college, and many to the most selective college. I hate that term and the process. We are unbalanced, no more commitment or loving than teachers at a poor school less than 400 yards away. Then to exacerbate the problem, our politicians decide to test kids most of the time and prepare them for the test the rest of the time. And, okay, yes. You know, Keene is bigger than Bedford, New Hampshire. Oh, stupid blood. I cut myself earlier and I guess the Band-Aid ain't holding. Keene is bigger than Bedford. But Bedford has over $3 billion worth of taxable property. Keene has $1 billion, which means that the people in Bedford can do really well. They have more money to spend on their kids. It's more money to spend at school. Okay, the kids here in Keene, if they want to play soccer or softball or baseball, usually the best they can get is the rec center. He's bringing me some tissues. Thank you. I was right-handed until I had my stroke, and I have to shave left-handed, and sometimes I don't do very well. And so what happens is, yes, there's some kids here, they may get on the Swamp Bats, or they may get on one of the traveling girls softball teams, but I think the Swamp Bats are my grandkids. It was like $3,500. That's an awful lot of money. And hey, if you live in Bedford, your kids can be on traveling teams. You can pay for your kids to do a lot of things that are just not available. You can send your kids, you can have your kids ballet, dance, lacrosse, you name it, they can get it. My grandsons live down in Georgia in a really good community. They get to play club soccer and everything. They're at a level, the clubs that they play, usually at junior high levels, would destroy the teams up here in Keene because the Keene soccer guys would never get that opportunity. The local Cheshire soccer team, no, not much of an opportunity at all. He goes, I have undergraduates in my classroom today who cannot do math my peers and I were doing in the 7th grade in 1988. In interest of full disclosure, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, was educated properly, and I am a first-generation college student. My first elementary school had no more than 13 students per class. My second was larger, but was literally located across the road from a truck stop. We learned about electricity in fourth grade. My students never learned about it. We learned the location and basic function of our organs in health class in seventh grade. My students don't know where their kidneys are located. My thoroughly average public school still managed to adequately prepare me for a top-tier liberal arts school and a top-tier university. Anyone who thinks that eviscerating our once enviable public school system is not 100% deliberate is deluding himself or is unable to think about the issue critically, because they are recent grads of a newly broken education system. One of the goals of the right is to stop public education to the breaking point. Point out to America how public education is broke so they can privatize it. The public university, which I teach, with 75% taxpayer funding, it is less than 20%, and people wonder why tuition keeps increasing. Plain and simple. Yeah, the state of New Hampshire spends less money to support the colleges, and yes, it's kind of a tricky because you're comparing apples to bananas. Because yes, if your budget was $10 million and the state gave you $5, it was 50%. Now, if your budget is $100 million and the state gives you $30 million, now look how much you've dropped off. You've gone from 50 to 30. So the cost of going to colleges and college budgets are going up much higher, much quicker than what the states are going. And a lot of the states took the opportunity and took the Great Recession to reduce money to education, both at the local level and at the higher level. And yes, there are places that they just don't want to support education. And that is plain and simple. We can talk all we want. If we're not going to support education, what are we going to do? Here's another teacher. Don't blame Common Core. If anything, Common Core mirrors the kind of instruction goals that are now being followed in countries that score well on the PISA test. I admit to having issues with Common Core, but the substance of the reform calls for teachers to invite students to participate in the process of inquiry, problem-solving, sense-making. Students, according to the Common Core, must have opportunities to participate in authentic, conceptual problem-solving and argumentation. So then what was wrong? First and foremost, our teachers are at not the same educational and training level of comparative industrial nations. They lack deep background in their subject matter, which is the foundation of the Common Core, and the curriculum of nations doing well. Second, nationally doing well on the PIS spend more time in school. For example, 240 days in Japan. Third, even when in school, American students waste enormous time on things of non-academic activities. American students, they got homecoming, prom, prep assemblies. And plus, last but not least, our culture is becoming more and more anti-intellectual, anti-school. Yes, that what Mrs. Jones had said comes out to another teacher. The United States standards for education have never really been that high. What it used to be is that a lot of upper middle class to upper class women would go to school. You could go to Vassar or Radcliffe or one of the other, and then they would go and become teachers. And they would stay teachers until they got married. And for the longest time, you could not be married in a lot of places and remain a teacher. As soon as you got married, you could no longer stay a teacher. Education, excuse me, if I want to be a history major, I may repeat myself, I have to go 40 hours of history. If I want to be a history teacher, I got to go 20 hours of history and 20 hours of education. This is what they do it in Finland and Singapore, for example. 1 and 2. Let's start by following Finland's example. Only the top % of the undergraduates would be allowed in a master level teaching program. So in Finland, whether I go to school to major in science or mathematics or history, I have to take all 40 hours. I have to become really knowledgeable in my subject matter. If I'm really knowledgeable, they take a test and they go, okay, you people make the top 10%. So you guys are eligible to become teachers in Finland. Because you're the top, we are now going to send you to a school, a master's, for the next year. And you know what you're going to do? We're going to teach you how to instruct properly and how to transfer knowledge and how to teach students to go out and search for knowledge. So now, if I'm 23 years old in Finland, I have gone to 4 years of college and I majored in depth in history. Then I go for a whole year to learn how to teach. So I'm 23 years old. Now in the United States, if I'm 22 years old, I get an education degree with history, and then I have to pass this test to say I'm qualified to be a teacher. If I can score on the top 75% of that test, I can become a teacher. So 1 year difference, 40 hours, 20 hours, 1 year of just total instruction, how to be a teacher. Bingo. So 20 hours, how to be a teacher. I may get some student teaching someplace. Okay. Then I go look for a job. Maybe I can find a job. Oh yeah, maybe I can find a job in Keene to start at $40,000 a year. But I really can't afford to live in Keene on $40,000 a year. If studio apartment, 600 square feet, are going $1,500, $1,600. Then, in Finland and Singapore, you're considered a professional, so you're going to get paid a heck of a lot more. You're going to get paid like a doctor or a lawyer. You're respected as professionals they are. I taught for over 20 years. I took a dramatic pay cut to become a teacher. I have a master's degree in my subject, not education, and I'm a national board certified teacher. I spend many, many hours reading the latest research, crafting rigorous lessons, providing feedback to my students, and attending professional development events. If I teach for the rest of my working life, I will never make much more than $50,000 a year. So in Keene, now this is all. So Keene, you can work 30 years, and after 30 years, you could be up to $70,000 a year. And I go, shoot. I can join the Marine Corps, become a captain in about 6-7 years. That means I've already been promoted twice, and I'm making more than what a teacher in Keene would be making in 30 years. So there's a lot of moving parts to this education part. In a lot of cases, they don't listen to the really good teachers. You got teachers who really want to educate the students. They don't want to kiss butt for administrators that don't want to go along. We've got systems that, like in New York, you can be really bad. They put you in a little room and you constantly get paid. We can't get rid of bad teachers that easily. And then we get other teachers that float around. We have to listen. And if we want to educate our students, we got to work together. Because for a lot of students, it's not the teacher's fault. For some students, it is the teacher's fault. For some students, it's the administrator's fault. For some teachers, it's the administrator's fault. So there's a lot of fault to go around, but there's a lot of positive. Most of the teachers come to work every day wanting to make sure that kids know more than what they came in. Their students are better people when they came in the door in the morning. So just wanted to, bring the education part. There's a lot of things that the news, politicians, we got to keep politicians out of education. Politicians go whoever pays them the most money. Hey, and like New Hampshire, we're going to give money to private schools because they help basically donate to the right campaigns. So that's all it for today. I'm sorry I cut my ear and bleeding during the show, but I recommend that you go out and start reading about education. Don't listen to the politician, administrators, teachers right now. Go find out for yourself so you can ask the right questions. Well, and so signing off, and I will see you next week.